I still remember the exact moment my world broke into pieces. I was sitting in my childhood living room in Neepville. I sat across from my parents at the coffee table where I had spent so many mornings sipping coffee and reading or planning my days. The room was quiet except for the soft ticking of the clock on the wall. Mom was playing with her ring, twisting it around her finger nervously. "Celera," she said softly, "we need to talk about your savings account." I looked at her, puzzled. Dad avoided looking at me. He kept shifting in his seat as if the chair itself were uncomfortable. "We accessed it," he said slowly. "We used $85,000 to help your sister buy her dream home." My sister smirked from the armchair. She looked relaxed, like she was sitting on her throne, enjoying every second. "You don't have any money left now, do you?" she asked, almost teasingly. I pulled out my phone and opened the banking app. My heart sank as I saw the numbers change. My balance went from $95,000 to just over $10,000. That was all the money I had saved for 5 long years. But instead of crying or yelling, I started laughing. Not a quiet laugh, but a loud, uncontrollable laugh that bounced off the walls. It was strange even to me. The laughter faded and then the shock hit me like a heavy stone in my chest. But deep down I felt calm. That money wasn't just numbers on a screen. It was 5 years of hard work. 5 years of being a software engineer in Chicago's Loop District, working 60 hours a week while others went on vacations, went out to eat, or bought fancy clothes. I had skipped dinners at restaurants, worn the same few outfits over and over, and saved every penny. All of it was for my dream. A startup idea, a special app to help people manage their money better. I had worked so hard, planned so carefully, and now it was gone. How had they even gotten access? Last year, I had allowed them temporary access to my bank account while I was recovering from knee surgery. I trusted them. "It was an emergency," Dad said softly. "Your sister needed stability." My sister lounged in her chair looking perfect. Her nails were done, her outfit was designer, and she had that look of someone who always got her way without lifting a finger. I needed air. I stood up and walked to the window. The cold air outside would help me think. My mind raced. They had no idea what I knew. If you've ever had a family betray you, you know the pain. If you want, share your experience in the comments. A week earlier, I was in my office in Chicago, sitting at my desk overlooking the bustling Loop District. My eyes were glued to the computer screen, where lines of code swam before me after another long, tiring work session. At TechForge Solutions, my job as a software engineer was to make sure financial transactions were safe and secure. I spent hours making sure everything worked perfectly. Sometimes I worked late into the evening, but I loved it because each line of code brought me closer to my own dream. While my coworkers went out to happy hours or weekend trips to the lake, I stayed focused. My lunches were simple: peanut butter sandwiches or leftover pasta. I didn't buy fancy clothes, just practical shirts and pants I could wear over and over. Every dollar I saved went toward my dream. Over 5 years, I had saved $95,000. That money wasn't just money. It was my ticket to independence and my future. I had planned to launch FintraPro, an app that could help people manage money. It would track spending, warn about overspending, and give helpful advice on how to save. It would even use voice commands and alerts to warn about fraud. I had imagined it helping busy people like me who didn't have time to track every penny. I had already found an office space in the Loop. It had exposed brick walls, modern desks, and fun little pods where teams could work together. It was close to other tech companies, which meant I could network and meet other people in technology. The rent fit my budget and I had room to grow. I even had friends and colleagues ready to test the app as soon as it was ready. But lately, family problems have started distracting me. During a coffee break, I checked social media and saw troubling posts from my sister. One picture showed her at a luxury boutique in Lincoln Park. She was smiling and wearing expensive clothes. The caption read something like, "When your sibling hoards all the success and leaves you with nothing." Another post complained about family members caring more about money than about helping loved ones. Her posts had lots of likes and comments. Some people even tagged me, indirectly calling me out. It felt like she was trying to make me look bad. At 32, my sister had always coasted through life. She had jumped from one retail job to another, tried to become an influencer, and never really saved any money. Meanwhile, I, at 28, had worked hard to build stability. Our parents had helped her many times, paying her rent after failed modeling gigs or covering credit card bills from impulsive trips. I confided in my friend during lunch. I showed her the post. "This is jealousy," she said. "She's trying to make you look like the bad one. Remember how she borrowed money from you last year and never paid it back?" I sighed. Her pattern was clear. She felt entitled. She expected people to give her what she wanted. Meanwhile, I worked hard to be independent. Growing up, my sister was the charismatic one. She could charm anyone at family gatherings. I focused on school and part-time jobs. My friend leaned in closer. "Protect yourself," she said. "Make a fake savings account. Put some money there, just enough to make it look real. Keep the real money safe. If they try anything, they'll take the wrong money." Her advice clicked in my mind. That afternoon, back at my desk, I set up a new bank account. I transferred $85,000 from my main account and added a little extra interest to make it look untouched. I even copied the notifications so that it looked exactly like my real account if anyone checked. I felt a mix of guilt and determination. I hated having to protect myself from my own family, but I needed to be ready in case trouble came. Later that evening, it was raining in Neepville. I walked down the sidewalk, jacket pulled tight against the cold wind blowing off the lake. My mind was still spinning from the confrontation at home. My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a notification from Dad's messaging app, which was still synced from when I had helped him with his device months ago. Curiosity got the better of me. I opened the app and scrolled through the messages. One thread caught my attention. It was from 3 days ago and it included Dad, my sister Zephra, and her boyfriend. I froze as I read. "Celera won't notice if we move fast." My fingers trembled as I tapped the message. Zephra had written, "The surgery access is still active, perfect for the down payment." Dad replied, "We're in." Her boyfriend added, "Absolutely. This property in Lincoln Park will turn a quick profit. Family funds for family gains." More messages followed, discussing timing, how to avoid my questions, and reassurances that I would just get over it because I always bounced back. Betrayal hit me like a punch. The 3 people I trusted most had schemed behind my back. They treated my hard-earned money as if it was theirs to use. I read the messages again and again. Rain soaked my shoes as I drove to her apartment building in Lincoln Park. The texts ran through my mind. How long had her boyfriend been involved? I had met him a few times. He always seemed charming, talking about real estate deals. I never suspected he would be part of this. Her apartment building was sleek, with a doorman and rooftop views. I buzzed her. She answered casually. "Come on up," she said as if nothing had happened. Her apartment screamed luxury. Marble counters, abstract art, furniture that cost more than my monthly rent. She was wearing loungewear, nails freshly done. "We need to talk about the money," I said firmly. Her face tightened slightly. That was the little telltale shift from childhood that I remembered well. "What about it?" she asked. I showed her the bank transfer confirmation from my app. "You planned this with Dad and your boyfriend. Those texts prove it." Color drained from her cheeks, but she quickly recovered. "You're overreacting. It was just the family helping out," she said. Her boyfriend, who had been in the bedroom, came out with a towel over his shoulder, like he had just finished working out. "What's going on?" he asked, pretending to be surprised. His eyes, however, darted to Zephra. I confronted them directly. "The house isn't for living. It's a flip, right?" Zephra glanced at him before admitting. "Fine. Yes. We want to buy it cheap, fix it, and sell it for more. Your money kickstarts it and everyone benefits." Kalen nodded in agreement. "We researched the neighborhood. No risk," he said confidently, though I could sense he was nervous. I pressed for more details. "How much profit? Why lie to our parents about needing stability?" She waved her hand dismissively. "They wouldn't understand the business side. This way it's for family security." He added, "We hit the flip to avoid drama like what you're causing now." Shock coursed through me, but I stayed calm. This wasn't helping, it was exploitation. Zephra laughed bitterly. "You're always the martyr, saving every penny while I take chances. Maybe learn to share," she said. I subtly gathered more information. The property address, the realtor's name, before leaving. My mind was racing. The next morning, during my lunch break, I couldn't focus at work. The revelation from last night, those texts exposing the scheme, kept running through my mind. I decided to verify the information. I opened public record websites and typed in the property address Zephra had given. The listing popped up. A two-bedroom condo in Lincoln Park had been purchased 5 days ago for $120,000. A fresh for sale sign already appeared in the photos, asking $160,000. My stomach dropped. Why sell so soon unless it was never meant for living? I dialed the realtor's number from the site, using a professional tone. "Hi, I'm inquiring about the Lincoln Park condo on Elm Street," I said. The agent sounded cheerful. "Yes, the owner wants a quick sale. It's a gem, hardwood floors, updated kitchen. She's motivated." "Has she lived there?" I asked. The agent chuckled. "No. Bought as an investment. Plans to flip after minor updates." Mentioned family backing her venture. I thanked the agent and hung up, my pulse racing. Zephyr didn't need a home. She had used my money to make a profit, lying to everyone in the process. Traffic was light as I drove back to Neepville that evening. My mind was a mix of anger, shock, and determination. They had underestimated me. They thought I would just accept it. But I would turn this around. Our family house was quiet in the suburbs. The kitchen light was on, shining softly on the clean counters and the little fruit bowl in the corner. The smell of dinner from the night before still lingered faintly. I walked up to the door and knocked lightly. Mom opened it, looking very tired. "So, we weren't expecting you," she said, her voice shaky. Her eyes were red, like she hadn't slept well in days. I could see her hands twisting nervously in front of her. Dad was sitting at the kitchen table. Papers were scattered everywhere. It looked like a storm had hit, but it was just him and his paperwork. "I know about the house resale," I said slowly, holding the printouts of the records I had brought with me. Their faces went pale. Mom's mouth opened slightly and Dad's eyes widened. I laid the papers down on the table carefully, making sure they could see every number and document. "This wasn't for stability," I said quietly but firmly. Dad cleared his throat and looked at me, guilt in his eyes. "We needed more money than we said," he said finally. Mom bit her lip and twisted her hands even more nervously. "Your savings covered most of it," Dad continued, "but we needed $30,000 extra. So, we took out a second mortgage on the house." The words felt heavy in the quiet kitchen. I felt a cold lump in my stomach. They had owned this house for 15 years and now their retirement money, the money they worked their whole lives to save, was at risk. I scanned the documents in front of me. The papers showed a loan from a local bank. The interest rate could change. The monthly payments were high. If they wanted to pay off the loan early, they would have to pay extra. Everything about it felt dangerous. "How much are the monthly payments?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. Dad swallowed hard. $2,400 a month, he admitted. My stomach sank. Their fixed income from pensions and Social Security added up to $3,200. That left only $800 for food, electricity, water, medicine, and other basic things. My mind started calculating. This was a house of cards. Something went wrong, it could all fall down. "Did Zephyr know?" I asked, my voice shaking a little. Mom shook her head. "We thought it would be temporary," she said quietly. "Until she stabilized. We didn't mean for it to be like this." I remembered the texts I had seen from Kalen. He had advised hiding details. He told them everything would be fine because the house flip would make money fast. He even suggested ways to make the risks look smaller than they really were. I spoke out loud, piecing it together. "So, you lied about your income on the loan application? That is fraud. You could get into really big trouble with the law." Dad's face fell. Mom nodded weakly. They had been tricked by Zephyr and Kalen, or maybe they had gone along with it without thinking about the risks. Kalen had coached Zephyr on how to convince my parents to take the money, and he had given her templates for the loan documents. Anger started to build inside me, but I stayed calm. I looked at the house I grew up in. The kitchen where we baked cookies. The living room where we celebrated birthdays. All of it was at risk because of someone else's gamble. Now the house was being used for Zephyr's flip, and Kalen's advice made it all possible. I left the house with copies of the papers. My mind was racing, thinking about the next steps. They couldn't hide behind ignorance. They had crossed a line and I needed to protect myself. 2 days later, I was back in my apartment. I was halfway through dinner when my phone buzzed. A notification popped up. "Suspicious login attempt detected." My fork froze midair. I stared at the screen. The alert said someone tried to log into my main bank account. The one with my real savings. Not the decoy I had created. My heart pounded. I grabbed my laptop and opened all the security dashboards I had set up. The logs showed multiple attempts in the past hour. One IP address came from near Lincoln Park, where Zephyr lived. Another tried using a VPN, but the pattern showed someone who wasn't very skilled. I called Isolde immediately. She arrived in 20 minutes, laptop in hand, her face serious. We sat at my kitchen table under the dim light and started looking at the data. "Look at this timestamp," she said. "It matches exactly when you confronted your parents about the mortgage. Someone's desperate for money." Using tools like Wireshark, we traced the IP to a public Wi-Fi spot at a coffee shop. But the metadata from the attempts matched a device I had seen on family visits during holidays. Isolde cross-referenced the emails I forwarded her. One from Kaylin to Zephyr read, "If the first pot's dry, try the main well." Use these creds I pulled from her old login. Confirmation hit me like a wave. Zephyr and Kaylin were behind this. They had gone from unauthorized access to trying to hack my real account. We worked late into the night. We exported bank logs into a secure PDF. We took screenshots of login alerts, IP addresses, and error messages. Every attempt was documented with timestamps. Isolde captured emails and texts with clean timestamps so no one could say they were tampered with. We even had geolocation pings showing the attempts near her apartment. By midnight we had a complete folder. Digital timestamps, device IDs, error codes showing failed password guesses. They even tried old information like my birthday. Their sloppiness was proof. They had used unsecured connections without hiding their tracks. Any forensic expert could follow the trail. The next morning I contacted Mr. Malrick, a civil attorney recommended by a friend. His office in downtown Chicago was professional with leather chairs and stacks of files. I explained the situation, showing him the folder with all the evidence. "Unauthorized access to your account and attempts to hack your real savings?" he said, flipping through the documents on his tablet. "This is serious. At minimum, it's conversion of funds. At worst, it could involve wire fraud if they used interstate tools. We can start with demand letters, and if they don't respond, we can go to court." I left his office feeling determined. This was no longer just about recovering money. It was about showing consequences. People who crossed lines needed to understand the risks. That weekend, a call shattered my Saturday morning. Mom's voice was panicked. Dad had collapsed in the kitchen. One side of his face drooped, and the words were hard to understand. Paramedics were already taking him away. I dropped everything and drove north on I-290 as fast as I could. At Rush University Medical Center, they wheeled him into neurology. The ear doctor pulled me aside. "He had a minor ischemic stroke," the doctor said. "Likely from high blood pressure worsened by stress. He's stable, but the next 48 hours are critical." Mom held my arm, shaking. I felt the floor tilt beneath me. This was not just aging or bad luck. This was the fallout of their choices. Zephyr burst into the hospital an hour later. Kaylin followed like a shadow. She wore oversized sunglasses even under the bright fluorescent lights. "How is he?" she demanded loudly, her voice echoing in the quiet hall. I waited until we were alone in the family lounge. "Your hack attempt triggered alerts," I said quietly but firmly. "The logs point straight to your apartment." She turned pale. Kaylin tried to interrupt, but I cut him off. "Don't. The evidence is already with counsel." She started to cry. "We were scared the first amount wasn't enough for closing costs," she admitted. I finished. "You needed seed money for a flip. And when the decoy dried up, you went after the rest. That is dangerous and wrong." Mom had overheard. "Zephyr, is this true?" she asked, trembling. Dad's monitor beeped faster. Nurses rushed in. By late afternoon, Dad was moved to a regular room with IVs and oxygen monitors tracking every heartbeat. The doctor warned that more agitation could trigger another stroke. Yet they insisted on a family meeting right there at Dad's bedside. We pulled chairs into a cramped circle. Dad lay propped up, eyes pleading. Mom sat rigid. Zephyr fidgeted. Kaylin hovered by the door like he might run. I took a deep breath. "You all believed $85,000 could ruin my future," I said. I unlocked my phone and turned the screen so everyone could see. My real balance glowed bright. $400,000 untouched. The account they drained was a decoy I had created the moment I suspected trouble. Mom gasped. Dad's eyes widened. Zephyr's mouth opened. You set us up, she cried. No, I said, voice steady. I protected myself from people who coordinated behind my back. Texts, emails, mortgage documents, failed login attempts. Everything is documented and time-stamped. Dad rasped, Sarah, family. I said, family doesn't mortgage their retirement for a lie. The family doesn't try to hack someone else when the first theft isn't enough. You turn my savings into gambling money and risk Dad's life. Mom sobbed quietly. Zephyr's voice cracked. We thought we were helping her get stable. I said, no. You sold a fantasy while planning profit. The house, Dad's safety, my money. It's not for gambling. Kaylin finally spoke softly. We can still turn the property and pay everyone back. There is no everyone back, I said. I gathered my jacket and left the room. The choice was made. They would face the consequences alone. Over the following months, Mr. Malrick filed a civil lawsuit at Cook County Circuit Court. The defendants were Zephyra, Kaylin, Mom, and Dad. Charges included conversion of funds, breach of fiduciary duty, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. The courthouse in downtown Chicago, with its grand columns and busy clerks, became a second home. Discovery lasted 8 weeks. Their lawyer tried to dismiss the case, saying family privilege applied, but Judge Seraphine denied it. There was enough probable cause from our filings to continue. Mr. Malrick deposed each defendant. Zephyr was evasive about the flip. Kaylin minimized his emails as casual advice. We countered with evidence. Bank records proving the $85,000 transfer, timestamped text chains showing coordination, detailed hack logs with IP addresses, and mortgage documents showing exaggerated income. Pretrial conferences were intense. Lawyers debated every detail. Each time we had proof. Every number, every message, every failed login attempt was documented and organized. The case moved forward carefully. We prepared for trial knowing the truth was on our side. The road was long, but it was clear. People who crossed boundaries had to face real consequences. Mr. Malrick spoke in court saying, this was not just a small family loan. This was someone taking money on purpose trying to trick me. The other lawyer wanted to settle it quickly, but I said no. It was very important to make sure the people who did wrong had to take responsibility. The trial started in early spring. It lasted 2 days. Judge Seraphine, who is very serious and fair, was in charge. Her courtroom had wooden walls and a high desk so everyone could hear clearly. The judge spoke firmly and everyone had to pay attention to every word. At the beginning, Mr. Malrick told the story of what happened. He explained how I had surgery and I gave someone permission to access my money. But they secretly took it without asking. They also tried other ways to take money, but I caught them. I lost a lot of money and it made me very sad because the people who hurt me were my own family. The other side said they were just trying to help, but they didn't have proof and their story did not make sense. Then witnesses started talking. I went first. I explained why I made a plan to catch them and how I found out what they were doing. The people who took the money thought my savings were theirs to use, not mine. When the other side asked me questions, I showed the text messages as proof. It showed that they were planning to take my money secretly. Zephyr went next. She looked nervous and admitted she used the money to buy a house. But she said she thought she was helping everyone. Kaylin talked about how he helped with the house, but he tried to make it sound like the hack was just a small mistake and not serious. Then my mom and dad talked. Dad was still weak from being sick and he spoke slowly. They both said they only wanted to help. But their words showed that they had been tricked, which proved my side was telling the truth. Experts also helped in court. A money expert showed exactly how much money I lost. They included interest that I could have earned and said the emotional hurt I felt was worth $50,000 based on my therapy notes. Another expert explained that the house flip was very risky. Because mortgage rates were going up, the house's value would probably go down. In the closing statements, Mr. Malrick said all the evidence showed that they tricked me to get money. He said I should get all my money back plus extra punishment money. The other side said, but it is family. Judge Seraphine thought for a short time and then made her decision. He said I was right. I won $150,000 total. $85,000 for the money stolen and $65,000 extra as punishment. They also had to pay all the court costs. After the court decision, things happened very fast. Zephyr's house did not sell. The housing market got worse because the Federal Reserve raised interest rates. making it hard for buyers to get loans. Property prices dropped 20% in just a few weeks, and her house investment lost a lot of money. She and Kaylin went bankrupt. They lost their cars and most of their money. Their credit scores became very low, which made it hard to borrow money for many years. My mom and dad had it even worse. They missed their mortgage payments and the bank took their house in a foreclosure auction. The house sold for much less than they owed. Dad had a stroke and medical bills piled up over $20,000. They had to spend all their savings and move to a small assisted living place with a fixed income. It was a very hard time for them. Our family relationships broke apart completely. Zephyr kept sending angry messages, but I didn't respond. Kaylin got in trouble for hacking and had to pay restitution, even though he could not afford it. Mom and Dad tried to contact me, but I ignored their calls and letters. Their choices caused all these problems and there was no way to fix the trust that was broken. A year after the trial, my company FintraPro did very well. The office was busy with people coding new features and marketers were talking to investors. We had 15,000 users in just a month. The money from premium features covered all our costs and even more. Some features, like alerts for fraud, were created because of what I learned from my experience. My COO Isolde helped the company grow and got our first funding from investors. She always said, "Your story made this happen, turning the bad experience into something good." I moved to a safe condo downtown and blocked all contact from my family. I focused on work and my new life. Sometimes I remembered happy family moments like barbecues in Neepville, but I stayed away because it was safer. Zephyr's life became very difficult. After bankruptcy, she lost her job and had to move into shared housing with strangers. People stopped talking to her. She sold her jewelry and became more and more isolated. Kaylin's life also got worse. His civil case made his reputation bad. He had to take classes about hacking, but he could not pay restitution. He moved to a cheap place, couch surfed, and had trouble opening bank accounts. He blamed Zephyr online, but it made things worse. Mom and Dad's life was sad. They lost their house and had serious medical problems. Dad needed therapy for weakness and speech. Mom's arthritis got worse. They lived in assisted living, ate in communal halls, and spent most of the time watching TV or playing bingo. They were lonely and sad. They sent letters and voicemails, but I didn't read or answer them. All of this happened because they made choices that allowed the scheme to happen. No apology or regret could fix it. I learned important lessons. I had to protect myself, set up financial safeguards, and keep emotional distance from people who could hurt me. Real families respect boundaries and do not take money for themselves. Focusing on myself helped me grow and succeed. Their failures were because of their own choices. My success came from being strong, careful, and smart. I felt closure and moved forward without compromising my safety or peace of mind. The story taught me that being cautious, setting boundaries, and taking care of myself is very important. Mistakes made by others can cause a lot of trouble, but I could turn the lessons from pain into something very useful and positive.